but I'm over here doing the swim with you.
Yeah, that's... It was good music. What are you going to do? I love that.
I was tempted, so I had to as well.
Dr. Howard Hill, thank you for being here. My first time meeting you, and I'll be completely honest, the reason I started looking into you was because you got mad a couple of weeks ago. You were mad because nobody was, hey, yo, I'm in the race too. And sure enough, I pull up timesfreepress.com, a recent poll, and not only is Dr. Gene Howard Hill in the race, but according to this poll of 207 voters, 52% say that that's who they're supporting for the 3rd Congressional District, with 33% saying Chuck Fleischmann and 14% saying Weston Wong. So not only in the race, but at least at this point, somewhat of a contender, according to this poll. So tell me about, first of all, just you being a candidate for the 3rd Congressional District.
Well, I'm more than a contender. I'm going to be your next congresswoman. But, I'm in this race for a number of reasons. Like I said before, I had gotten into the race earlier simply because, as an African-American Republican, 32 years of being an African-American Republican, I felt, and 25 years of being in national leadership as the national chair for the National Republican African-American Caucus, I felt that it was important that the Republican Party began to embrace the jewels within their party, because African-American Republicans pay a tremendous cost. We are shunned a lot of times by our black community, and then we're sort of closeted or hidden by the Republican Party. And so this was more like, trying to raise the level of consciousness. That's my duty as the national chair. But in this race now, I'm in it to win, because I believe that there has to be some changes made in Washington, D.C., and it's time out for career politicians. It's time out for people treating Congress like it's a whore. It's time for people who understand the process, have a heart for the people, know what to do, have research abilities to go there and to bring about a change in Washington that not only provides for a law, but also changes the atmosphere.
Talk about, not talk about Chuck Fleischmann, but talk about your reason for getting in the race. When somebody runs for an office, they obviously are seeing something lacking in the candidate or in the person that's filling that position now. And again, I like Chuck Fleischmann. I support a lot of the things that he's doing. We'll talk about that in just a moment as well. But what would you bring to the position of Congresswoman that maybe he's not as Congressman?
Commonality with the people. You have to have that. When you're having receptions and bringing people in and having it at the Walden Club, what you're doing is basically telling people that I'm only looking for certain people, and I'm of a certain class. And in the 3rd district, the 3rd district, the 11 counties, I've been through all of those districts, and we have some really good people who could not afford to pay $1,000 or $2,000 for a dinner. And so when you start excluding people, you've got to have some common connection with the people. That's what people are wanting. Secondly, people are wanting to be heard. It's one thing to go to Congress and say, I'm going to become a part of the political gang bangers in Washington. But that's not your role. Your role is to represent the people of your district and to find out what it is that they feel, take issues, research them, give them pro and con. Don't research them in a partisan fashion, but let them have the intelligence of knowing which way they want you to vote. And so those are some things that I think that are important, and I think that they're missing. I think that you have to connect with the people.
With the 3rd Congressional District, and to Congressman Fleischmann's credit, I know that he has had a number of town hall meetings where he has attempted, at least recently, to get out there.
Recently is the word, only because you're getting reelected. See, when I go to Congress, when a bill is introduced, and that bill is going to impact the 3rd District, I'm going to have that bill researched, and that bill is going to be available so that anyone within the 3rd District can see that bill and see how it impacts them. And then I'm going to ask the people of the 3rd District, give me your comments, tell me how you want to vote. You don't wait until it's election time and then start calling town halls. You ask people for their opinions before the bill reaches the floor.
Before we go to break, we have about a minute and a half. But what are, just kind of run down the list real quick, what are the issues of the 3rd Congressional District that you want to make sure are represented in Congress?
Well, one of the things is the stimulation of jobs, and also looking at what is even going on in China and understanding that with that present situation, it's impacting our economy even today. being able to do something with Medicare and Social Security that doesn't tremendously impact the senior citizens to the point that they're not able to get their monies, while at the same time making sure that those people that are paying into the system right now are okay. The veterans are so overlooked. And they're some of the people that have paid the greatest price to our country. And so we're going to have to look, I've been up all night long, so, I didn't get my
coffee. Oh, my heavens.
Well, when you've been up praying, you don't need coffee.
There you go.
But there are many, many more issues that I would get into, and those issues I'm going to make sure that I present to the people of the 3rd District so that they can know.
Dr. Jean Howard Hill, I feel bad because sometimes I will stay up late at night praying, but the only reason I'm able to stay up late at night is because I've had the coffee, and then I'll go pray. And I don't know if that's good or bad. She's looking at me like it's bad. I'm sorry.
As long as you're praying.
There you go. Dr. Jean Howard Hill. More with Dr. Hill when we return. 5:15, your WPLZ News Time. Out to Beth Newhoff. Please be careful. It is hazardous on the roadways today. Dr. Jean Howard Hill, our guest, Yolanda Adams, 518. I'm David Karnes along with Mike Chambers. We also have Tara V. hanging in doing producer duties today. And Dr. Jean Howard Hill, let's get right back into it. Dr. Howard Hill is Lady J, by the way. Where did the name Lady J come from? Where'd that come from?
Because Jean is my first name. There's a J. And so I'm a lady. Beautiful.
I thought it would be more complex than that. I'm sorry.
Like Tara B, Lady J. Yeah, and I like being a lady because I think that that's necessary, and I don't need to change my gender in order to go to Congress, but I can still be strong and effective. In fact, some are our strongest women, our strongest leaders are women, so.
Like Nancy Pelosi, right?
Okay. All right.
Yeah, sure, whatever. Hey, 518, Dr. Howard Hill's running for Chuck Fleischman's current seat for the 3rd Congressional District, and Chuck Fleischman has put out a 7-point jobs plan that he's pushing right now. Jobs, of course, the number one issue on everybody's mind. What would be the Dr. Jean Howard Hill plan for getting jobs back into the 3rd Congressional District?
Well, I think first we have to stimulate the economy, and when we're talking about stimulating the economy, we all know that small businesses is really the factor that's involved in here, because most of the jobs are produced by small businesses. And so we got to make sure that we take care of those small businesses to make sure that they are getting what they need, the kinds of loans that they need, with a repayment kind of plan that it's good for them and they're able to reach that. And then also what we got to do is that we got to start looking at our higher education system. We have a higher education system that is now requiring graduates to pay back those loans at a time in which most of them can't even find jobs. I think it's like 55% are without jobs, and those who are working are not working within their career field. And so we got to do something about that. Like 37% are still staying at home. That's really sick. Having to stay at home simply because you can't get the job. And so if we can start rolling back some of those loans, or not forgiving the loans, but just giving a little bit more time for our graduates to be able to pay back those loans. And then what we've got to do is that we've got to stop spending. We're spending and we're spending and we're spending, and we've got to get a grip on the spending in America. And when we can do those things, I think we're going to begin to see some things begin to lower themselves.
But you know what? It seems like every time somebody tries to stop spending, you have 17 special interest groups. No, don't cut me, don't cut me. And then there's so much pressure that it never changes. As a matter of fact, we'll give you more instead of cutting your spending.
What you got is you got a lot of lobbyists in Congress, and the people are going to have to start being their own lobbyists. And when they start doing that, then we're going to see more responsible congressional people that are saying, well, we got to stop spending at some point.
Well, I've heard some conservatives say that if you would just cut back to, say, 2008 spending levels, that would probably solve a slew of problems. That 40-50% of all of this stimulus spending that's been going out is just piled onto everything else.
Has any of the stimulus spending been good, or has it just been throwing good money after bad?
I think it's been good in terms of temporary jobs, particularly in construction and infrastructure. And we do need infrastructure. And so when you're doing that, I think that's been a good thing. But you can't really just throw money at people, temporary money, even though that's good. But you got to get the spending to a point where that it's even out. and so that you don't have these rises and falling in spending. And we can, I mean, there are many areas that we can begin to cut within federal government by not allowing so many, and I'm not against regulation, but I think that we have to have a balance even with regulations. We have to regulate to a certain degree, and then beyond that, allow private enterprise to do that.
Now, you mentioned that the lobbyists and special interests controlling a lot of what goes on in terms of spending, and I think that's what a lot of the Occupy Chattanooga folks and Occupy Wall Street folks that may be listening right now, and I know some of them do, they're saying, that's what we're saying, for crying out loud. So there is some commonality there. Talk about your views and your opinion on the Occupy Wall Street movement, specifically here in Chattanooga.
Well, I think that, and particularly having taught American government and political science, protest is something that we have used in our nation to bring about change. Certainly that was the case with the Civil Rights Movement, and had there not been protests, then we would have not seen the change that we have. Same thing with the Vietnam War. And so I think protest is good, but whenever you see protests of this extreme, whether it's the Tea Party or the Occupy organizations or movements, what we're basically saying, or what they're saying, is that the people are tired, and they don't feel that they have any other avenue other than to get out there and protest, because their congressional people, leadership, have failed them, president has failed them, and so that's a sign to me, and I truly believe that when you get to that point where you're not being heard, protest is good, but, you know, we have to be careful to stay within the ladder of the law in our protests. But I'm a person that I believe that the power of government needs to go back to the people, and when it goes back to the people, if it comes through protest, so be it.
I like the way that you say that, and it kind of isn't really, it doesn't really matter what the protest is. Like you say, it's a sign that there's some discomfort out there.
Exactly.
And I think you're absolutely right. Whether, you know, we can debate whether they're doing it the right way or not, or whether they're going to be effective. But yeah, I think you're right there. Let's talk real quick. I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead and take our last break a little bit early. Then when we come back, I want to get to just some social issues and find out on a more personal level who Dr. Jean Howard Hill is, some of the things that you believe. We'll do that when we come back. 5:25, the afternoon news right now. Howard Hill, is that Yolanda? No, that's Anna.
Good girl.
And Dr. Jean Howard Hill, our guest this hour, and got a lot more to cover. Let's get right back into it. Of course, the voter ID is changing. The new law going into effect this election is that you have to have a photo ID in order to get in and vote. Kind of, but if I'm not mistaken, there are absentee ballots and things. You can still get those without any problem. But what's your position on that with the new photo IDs, that ID law that's going into effect?
Well, you know, I think that there are two sides to that. First of all, we have to have identification for most of the things that we do, and so most people do have identification, and I don't really see a problem with requiring a photo identification. And I think where the issue comes is in people who are not able to get those photo IDs. And so we have to be careful. While I would support a photo ID, we also have to be careful that we're giving opportunities for those people who may not be able to get a photo ID. And to be able to, I think the requirement now is that you have to have a state-issued photo ID. And so if there is a law that extends that far and puts those kind of requirements, and also that law has to include in there some ways in which people can gradually get into the photo identification category, and also to provide some services to help people, particularly senior citizens, people who are in nursing homes, people who are not able to get out and actually get that photo ID.
And a lot of Democrats are saying that it is specifically designed by Republicans to keep the elderly and to keep African Americans from coming to the polls, which I have.
Well, in the 3rd District, that wouldn't be quite true, because you have a large Republican elderly population in the 3rd District, and that would really be suicide if you did that. And I think that also, you know, to me, it's going to encourage African Americans to get on it, because, you know, it's like, I don't understand why as African Americans we're not going out voting. And so a lot of them want voting with the photo ID, without it. So, you know, maybe this will encourage them to get it.
We were talking about this off air a little bit on air, but being an African American woman in the Republican Party is a very difficult thing, as you expressed earlier. why are you part of the Republican Party, and which party and why helps the African American community the most?
Oh, boy.
Let's
see, it's 4 minutes, huh? Oh, okay. Well, I can speak for myself. I'm an African-American Republican simply because I looked at the 11 basic sentiments of the Republican Party, not what we're seeing now. But if I challenge anyone to go and look at those 11 reasons for the ideology of the Republican Party, and I think that you will be able to say, wait a minute, I think I may be Republican. It's empowerment. It's even equal rights, civil rights. And so it's all of these things. I chose to be a Republican because simply this is something that's more closely related to who I am. And I like the fact that the Republican Party does have a value system. And I'm not saying the Democratic Party doesn't have it either. Only problem I have with my party is that we have a system, but we don't always live it. And so, and I think that the Republican Party has a unique opportunity now to come forth and actually live what we say we are. And I think that if we do that, we're going to have people crossing over.
Do you think this is the year of Cain? I mean, this is changing the whole...
Raising Cain or President Cain?
Absolutely.
That's for me.
Kind of both, I guess.
I'm a Cainiac, I'll tell you right now.
Yeah, it's the year for me, Raising Cain, but you're talking about Herman Cain, right? Okay.
Actually, both.
Well, actually, I like Herman Cain, and Herman Cain is promising. It makes my heart feel good and glad, simply because I'm seeing the Republican Party embrace a man of color to the extent that I never would have dreamed. I mean, you pray, and then when prayers are answered, you sort of step back and look at the awe of God. And Herman Cain is a good man. I'm just disturbed at what's happening right now with these allegations of somebody said he said something to him. And guys, I'm sorry, but you know what? If that's the case, then all of y'all are guilty. And if there's any that are not guilty, raise your hand. And so,
Mike may have been guilty like 2 or 3 times yesterday. I don't know.
But it has to rise to a greater allegation than somebody said something to me. I mean, it really does.
But do you not think it's backfire? It's honestly disgusting to me every time I turn on the television.
That's all you're going to hear.
Somebody said 20 years ago that this might have happened, and this might have happened, and it looks like I've never seen anyone attacked so viciously yet. And we were talking about this off air as well. Yet when vicious attacks are leveled against Barack Obama, it was loudly decried as racism. Even more vicious attacks are being leveled against Herman Cain, and I hear no such cries at all. And I'm not sure it's racist in either scenario, but at the same time, it's despicable what's happening to this man.
Well, it seems like there's a double standard here, and this is a good man, and I believe that, and I think he has a good woman at his side. And it's just unfortunate now that everything else that he's saying is being derailed simply because of allegations. I mean, even the media people who are keeping this stirred, I mean, look in their closets, and you're going to find some things. And so at some point in time, we have to realize that people are people, and that somewhere along the line, we have done something that we'd rather not have someone say. And I'm not saying that's the case with Herman Cain, but I mean, certainly, and if I was a woman, I don't think I would want to put it out there that somebody said something, because to me that's petty, and I really believe that. We need to start focusing on candidates, good people, and what that candidate can do in terms of taking America in the direction it should go.
Where are we in terms of, just kind of bouncing off all of that, where are we in terms of race relations in this country right now? And let's even narrow it down to Hamilton County, expand out from the 3rd District a little bit, but just in this area.
I think Hamilton County is coming along. Can I take off my jacket and show you all the bruises on the back and the stabs and all that? But I think it's coming along. I think a lot of times racism in the Republican Party is married to territorialism.
There you go.
There we go. Okay. I'm waking up. And just mean-spirited politics. And so when you get those combinations together, it's sort of hard to know whether or not somebody's being racist or whatever. And so I used to say I saw 80% racism, but now I'm saying it's 20%, and the other 80 is just people being mean and trying to cover their own rears and to try to take turf that really doesn't even belong to them.
Yeah, we're giving too much credit to racism, where it's just good old-fashioned meanness and people being knuckleheads, right?
Yeah, because we're seeing that now with Cain, There are people that are supporting, and there are also people that are supporting that candidate, Lady J.
what I've heard.
Lady J, you mean Dr. Jean Howard Hill?
Absolutely. I mean,
Facebook page?
yes.
Go to the Facebook page. 545, one more segment. Dr. Jean Howard Hill running for the 3rd Congressional
Okay,
the
all right.
territorial 3rd Congressional District against Chuck Fleischman in the Republican primary. So we'll talk another segment with her. 545, out. Am I right, Tara?
But I believe you're correct based upon my research.
Based upon both of our research, which involves looking over at Tara's computer and reading the YouTube thing that she's got up.
I can't even see that far, but anyway.
I was hoping I could. You know, when I hit 40 years old, everything started to get blurry. I think I have an eye that's totally out of whack.
See, I don't know because I haven't turned 40 yet. I'm still 39, so I haven't.
Absolutely. How many years has it? 39 been going on?
Well,
1 or 2? All right.
More than 1 or 2, whatever.
She is young and young at heart, and her name is Dr. Jean Howard Hill, running for the 3rd Congressional District seat, which is currently occupied by Representative Chuck Fleischman. And let's find out a little bit more about you, just on a more personal level. Talk about your background and what qualifies you to be the Congresswoman for the 3rd Congressional District.
Well, you know, I have a law degree. I had to sort of back off that for a few minutes because this guy, he just walked up to me and he says, "We don't want any more lawyers." I said, "Well, I'm not practicing law." But, you know, I have taught at the University of Tennessee, American government, state and local, and international, and I know the process. And not only that, but I'm a research consultant. I do research on a local, national, and international level. You know, I implemented, and in fact, I created a program called Democracy in Action when I got out of college some years back, called Democracy in Action, that was implemented in the 2 dual school systems that actually taught civics. And so I'm very much familiar with with government and with the way in which government should be run. And not only that, but as a Republican, I've had 25 years of leadership on a national level. First, I was from 87 to like 99, I was the national chair for the National Black Republican Women. And then after my husband's death in 91, I carried that organization further. And around 1999, I combined the 2 organizations together to become the National Republican African American Caucus. And I'm currently the national chair for that. And so, and I could go on and on and on, you know, about my qualifications, but, you know, we really don't have a lot of time to do that.
Well, look, one aspect of you that I do want to get into is your faith, which plays a huge role in everything you do. And there is no doubt that will bleed over into your campaign and should you become elected into your congressional leadership. So talk about your faith.
Yeah, you know what, when you start talking about faith, people get a little scary or scared or whatever, and I think that's because there's been such a misuse and abuse of religion. And I want to make sure people understand, I'm not talking about religion, I'm talking about relationship with God. And when I lost my husband in 1991, I would not have made it had I not had a relationship with God and a prayer life. That was my best friend, that was my boyfriend, he was my, just, you know, we were just so compatible. And so when I'm talking about my faith, I'm not trying to make you take what I believe. I would hope one day that you would come into understanding it, but it's living by example, being kind to people, being courteous to people, not doing things behind people's backs. And these are the kinds of things that are happening in Washington. And if we can change the atmosphere by sending people there who know right from wrong, because whether we realize it or not, you've got to have some standard for conducting business in government. And that standard has to come from a higher source. And so therefore, you know, and I'm a praying woman, and I don't apologize to it for that. I don't apologize for my relationship with God. I would have to be stupid to back off of that, particularly understanding that He's sovereign almighty God, believe it or not. You know, it's not important to me that you believe it, but hopefully you will see some things in my life that will suggest, I don't go around talking about God all the time. I have fun. You know, I'm just a real fun person. But one thing you will know about me is that I take my relationship with God seriously to the extent that daily I'm asking God to give me wisdom, knowledge, understanding to be able to fulfill my divine purpose. And that's what really relationship is about, seeking God so that you can be all that God created you to be.
I love it. Let's talk about a couple of social issues, springboarding off of that. Abortion, what's your position on that?
Well, you know what? I hear a lot about abortion, but I want to turn it and flip it. Because every time we talk about abortion, we never talk about what caused the abortion. You know, we never talk about marriage, sex outside of marriage. We never talk about rape. We never talk about those things. And as a female, what I'm trying to do, and what a number of other Republican women on a national level is trying to do, is trying to yes, there is an issue with abortion, and we know where the party stands on abortion. But there's some issues that causes abortion. And so therefore, if we don't look at the fact that premarital sex, those kinds of things, and so what it does is that it puts the woman on the hook, and the man seems to get off the hook. When if it wasn't for the man raping, or if it wasn't for, if the man kept, Jack in the Box, there would be no abortion. And so, I really want to deal with that. And another issue, is gay marriage.
Well, but now before we get off of that one, Roe versus Wade, should it be overturned? Should it not be overturned?
I don't think we're going to have to worry about Roe versus Wade. I really don't. I think we have reached a point in our society now where people basically are going to follow what they believe. And people who do not believe in abortion are going to take a strong stand on that. And unfortunately, those people who do believe in it are going to go back room and do whatever they need to do. But I think that if we could increase the relationship that we have with God in this country, I think it will solve a lot of the social problems that we're talking about. Because these are relational problems.
And real quick, you mentioned gay marriage. We have about 30 seconds left. If you could touch on that.
Well, I think that we're going to have to stand up and realize that marriage is a covenant that's ordained by God, and as long as it's defined as a covenant defined by God, we got to play by God's rules.
All right, her name is Dr. Jean Howard Hill, Lady J, and she is running for the 3rd Congressional District against Chuck Fleischman, as well as Weston Wamp. A few others are going to be getting in the race, I am sure, before all is said and done.